The South Carolina platform, Republican platform, clearly supports the concept of school choice and healthy competition, yet with all the efforts of the present governor and many others, little progress has been made toward that goal. South Carolina still stands close to the bottom in education when compared to other states. As governor, what steps would you take to improve the education of our children in South Carolina to ensure a quality education for every child? Richard.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that, I turned it on. Thank you, Colonel. First of all, let me say I support school choice. And let me tell you a personal story. My 3 children are right there. They were homeschooled. They went to a Christian school, and they all proudly graduated from public school. My wife, Natalie, is a first-grade school teacher. But I'm not going to look any husband or wife or son or daughter in the face, ladies and gentlemen, and tell them they have to send their child where I tell them to. One size does not fit all in South Carolina, and we need choice for our future, for our family, for South Carolina. Also, I think at the heart of education, K through 12, is reading. You talk to the most conservative conservatives or the most liberal liberals, and they'll tell you that if you lose a child by the 3rd grade, you lose that child forever. No child, listen to me, no child should leave the 3rd grade in South Carolina that is not at or above 3rd grade reading level. That's a long-term goal, but we can fix that. To do that, we've got to get the dollars to the classroom. For every dollar spent in education in South Carolina, only 44 cents makes it to the classroom. I actually think it's lower than that. You know what the national average is? 65 cents. So where is all this money going? It's getting lost in some bureaucratic maze. We've got 5 educational budgets: EIA, EAA, EFA, and First Steps. Why can't we use some common sense business principles and have one budget? Let's give flexibility to the local school districts for accountability and transparency. Let me put another one out there. 46 counties, 85 school districts, 64 funding sources. If you've ever seen a plate of spaghetti, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. We've got to make sure those dollars get into the classroom for classroom instruction where they are needed.
Ladies and gentlemen, when I got elected to the legislature, I wanted to have a leg up on the rest of the legislators. And so I decided to go and volunteer in the public school system for 4 years to actually see what was going on. So I don't have to dream and hypothesize, I see it with my own eyes. Teachers are frustrated. It's not the money, it's the discipline or lack thereof. My granddaddy always said there was too much psychology in the public school and not enough psychiatry. You know exactly what he was talking about. Secondly, a teacher needs to be able to remove that student if they are continually disruptive, and we ought to fully fund alternative schools. Homeschoolers, we need to do more for them. They ought to be able to play sports in the public school where their tax dollars are funded, and they're saving our taxpayers money every time we homeschool. We ought to do all we can to encourage more of it. When I was a senator, we had the homeschool, we had the spelling bee champ and the geography bee champ for the work for the United States in Saluda, South Carolina. Sure, we ought to have school choice. I fully support school choice. We ought to fully fund Will Lou Gray and the John L. Howe School because some kids aren't getting it in that sector and they need a little more discipline, they need a little structure. But don't be fooled. I'll take you to the schools that have the lowest test scores and the highest dropout rate, and guess what? There's a common denominator. It's politically correct and nobody wants to talk about it. They have the highest free and reduced lunch, folks. There is a core reason why these people aren't excelling. They go home to no structure, no discipline, no guidance. The government did it years ago. It was called Aid to Independent Mothers. It broke up the family unity. It encouraged the father to leave the home. Until we address some of these real problems, we either got to have mentoring, we got to get the parents back in the classroom, or we got to have somebody to help them. You just can't teach them at school and think we're going to save the world. You got to have something to reinforce that when they go home, and we got to get engaged in that process.
Thank you. Yes, I'm very much for school choice, but I'm for school choice because if you think about it, when my husband and I were deciding preschool for our children, we picked a preschool that was best for them. We looked at their personalities and decided what would work for them. When it comes to higher ed, we are the envy of the world when it comes to higher ed. We decide whether our children should go to colleges or universities, whether they should major in liberal arts or whether they should go into engineering. If we're doing that in preschool and we're doing that in higher ed, why would we not do it in K through 12 in the years that matter the most? Right now, we're spending almost $12,000 a year to educate a child in this state. It is going through 1,000 people at the Department of Education in 85 school districts before it ever touches a teacher and student in the classroom. And we are only graduating 1 out of every 2 kids in 4 years. 1 out of every 2. We need to turn around and make sure not only do we put competition in schools, we need to reform the education funding formula. I was born and raised in a rural area where we didn't know what we didn't have. I lived in Orangeburg where they spent more time on discipline than they ever did teaching in the classroom. Now I'm blessed to represent Lexington County where every public school is like a private one. But you go into my schools in Lexington and every one of them has a smartboard, which is like a computer instead of a chalkboard. You go into my schools in Bamberg and they wouldn't know what a smartboard is. We can't educate children based on where they're born and raised. We need to educate them because they deserve a good quality education, and that is our future workforce. When we turn around and do that and understand we need to reform our education funding formula, we need to put merit-based pay in for teachers. When those teachers go into those challenge areas, we need to reward them for it. We need to make sure that we hold accountability measures. Get out of the way of the teachers, let government get out of the way, and let them teach. And then the main thing that we have to do, 47% of our budget is education. The governor needs to appoint the Secretary of Education. We need to make sure that the accountability of education is underneath the governor so that we can look at graduation rates, we can look at money in the classroom, we can look at accountability, and we can start improving our educational standards in South Carolina. Thank you.
I am all for choice and competition in every variety and every place it's been tried in the country. It's worked in every endeavor, not only education, but everything else. Unfortunately, the Obama administration and the radicals in Washington are trying to stomp out free enterprise. And I promise you, I'm going to fight them to the hilt with everything I've got as Attorney General and as your governor if you choose to elect me. One office that I would like to open would be something I'd call the Office of Common Sense, and have everybody, particularly those in the Department of Education, to take a good look at it. I know everybody's trying, but ladies and gentlemen, we have a dysfunctional system. Listen to this. We have a governor who's elected statewide who may have a vision for education but has no direct control over it. Under him, not under him, but beside him is a superintendent that doesn't answer to the government, doesn't answer to the Board of Education. State Board of Education consists of 17 people who are elected by the legislature, or groups of them, from 17 districts that probably nobody here can find on a map. And they don't report to him, he doesn't report to them. Below them you have 85 school districts counting. 85, and some counties will have as many as 7. Some are huge, some are small, all have huge administrative staffs. And below them, that's where you have the teachers and the principals. That's where the rubber meets the road. That's where all the work is really done. But they're filling out so many federal forms and that kind of stuff, they don't have time to teach. But we've got a dysfunctional system. I don't wonder why we're not doing better than we are. I wonder sometimes how are we doing as well as we are, given a dysfunctional system. I would appoint the superintendent of education. I'd make the board of education, those 17 people, advisory only. We would have accountability back in there, and we'd get the job done to get our children from preschool on through the 12, and then into technical college or another college into these high-paid jobs. Thank you.